is such an honor to have Katie and her dad Kevin, her mom Jeannie with us. I have only communicated by text until today. And I about lost it when I seen them. I just did. I thank Jesus for this. And here's the thing. All of this took place because Chris Ramsey was obedient to be willing to make himself available to go share his testimony from the Celebrate Recovery class out in Biltmore. And Chris, I know you don't mind me sharing this, Chris in school would honestly take an F or a 0 or whatever he had because he didn't want to get up and publicly speak. But when God did this work in his life, that's the change that God makes in you. And he's been willing to help and share with others. And by him doing that, I made a commitment to him that I would go. Truth be known, me being landscaping, at that day, I was physically exhausted. I was mentally exhausted. I was wore out. And just to be very transparent, I didn't want to go just because, not support him, I was just tired. And the Lord knocked on my shoulder and reminded me, you made a commitment. Now I look back, what if I hadn't followed that and said, yes, Lord, I did. And I went to see him. When I did, me and Adam met at the parking lot at Westgate. And after we got back, it was right about dark, if I recall correctly, or right there at it. And that's how I met Miss Katie. And then her testimony and the life transforms were there. Guys, I tell you this, because here's what you don't know. When Chris agreed to go, he had no idea that Katie's sitting here in the balance, waiting for somebody to come speak. I had no clue that God chose me to be the one to do that. I had no clue about that. And here's what you don't understand about your life. You've got a story. God is writing your story for his glory, and there's somebody out there waiting for you to impact who you may not even know. But you're the key person to impact them and to point them to Jesus. Get them on the track so they can point others to Jesus. It is my honor and my privilege tonight to introduce Miss Katie.
So my name's Katie. I am 34 years old and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. My weight has fluctuated my entire life. I have never felt pretty enough or like I fit in, especially in middle school. You know, we're young, we're as a young woman trying to figure out who I am. I didn't know. One of the girls that I quickly became really good friends with had an older brother named Tyler. That was a very pivotal moment in my life. I was around 14 at the time and he was 19. So what interest he had in me, I don't know. He was much older than me, but I began skipping school with him. He was the first person that I smoked weed with, and just young and stupid in high school. I mean, the kids were selling their Adderall or different pain pills they would steal from, you know, their mom or dad or grandparents, and I started taking them in high school. By 12th grade, I pretty much came out of it. I joined Color Guard. My mom and dad stepped in. You're not hanging with them anymore. Kind of put a stop to it. So, but I had already seen what pain pills made me feel like at that point, from a very young age. So after high school, I went to college. I ended up staying in college for almost 2 years. I was the captain of the college dance team. I was the sports writer for the school newspaper. Future was looking bright, right? Met back up with a guy that I went to high school with, and he was in a band. He was the drummer for a local band, and I just thought that was so cool, right? So I'm still trying to find myself. Now I'm the drummer's girlfriend, right? They were going on tour, and I'm like, I'm gonna quit college and go with them because that sounds like fun. We all moved into a house with the band, and it was a party every single night. I mean, still no real hard drugs at that point. We got real big into like acid and like mushrooms and like that kind of stuff, but I wasn't addicted yet. It was just a party. We were having fun. But little did I know that was leading to a full-fledged addiction. Me and the drummer were out one night, and somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was Tyler, the guy from early on that introduced me to everything. And I left the bar that night with Tyler. He lived in a rundown trailer in a bad part of Cincinnati. The floors were caving in. No heat, no hot water. And he was selling drugs. He was still selling drugs. So very quickly, I picked it right back up. Pain pills, he was selling coke at the time, so started dabbling in cocaine. A few months into that relationship, he hit me for the first time. And this man, I would say, I don't even want to call him a man, but he was about 6'7", almost 320 pounds. He was significantly bigger than me at the time. And I'm not just talking like a little bit of abuse. He was extremely abusive. I was hospitalized twice. We would be driving and he would push me out of the car while we were driving or just slam my head against the window. And the whole time my parents are like, come home. Like, what are you doing? Come home. But at this point I was addicted to pain pills. I had become physically dependent on pain pills. I got myself into really bad situations. I started working in and out of clubs. I was driving high. I totaled so many cars. I did things that I just absolutely, it's shame and guilt and regret. And the whole time, my parents, come home. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't. I was still running, trying to figure out who I was and not just surrendering and accepting what I knew the plan was all along. And there was a guy named Chuck who was at our apartment one time, and he pulled out heroin. He was selling heroin at that point. He was like, this won't make you, you won't be sick no more. Just sniff a little line of this. So I snorted the heroin that day. Well, I just snorted it. I'm not ever going to shoot it, right? Like I'm not a junkie. And then within, I don't know, I would say 6 or 7 months, I was shooting it. Doing anything that I could to get high at that point. But then the domestic violence went a step farther, and Tyler hit my mom while she was trying to get me away from him. My dad intervened, and there was a huge altercation that ended up making local news, and that opened my eyes. A few days later, I called my parents, crying my eyes out. I surrender, please help me. I am done running, right? That was in 2015. A few days later, I was on a plane to Nevada, and I went to rehab for the first time. It was a really bougie treatment center. There were like celebrities in there, and I was like, this is cool. Like, this is easy. This is fine. Met a guy in treatment, and he was from California. So when I got out of Vegas, a 30-day treatment program, I came back home to Cincinnati, and like 2 days later, I was like, I'm going to California to be with him. Like, I don't need to be here. This sounds like a good idea. And I did. A couple days after I got back, I was on a flight to Orange County, went into sober living out there, and that was rocky. I would stay sober for like 3 or 4 months, and then I would relapse. And me and the guy ended up getting like a little house down in San Diego, and we would stay sober for 6 or 7 months, and then we would relapse. It was just a mess. And I was calling, and they're back in Ohio, my parents are, and I'm just trying to pretend like, no, I'm still fine. I'm good. I'm $700 short on rent this month. Can you guys help me? But no, I'm not doing drugs. It just was a roller coaster of a ride. And still, Rory, or the guy from California, was very, hippie, West Coast. He believed in like Buddha and those types. And I was like, oh, well, this is who I am now. Like, still running from what I was being pulled and called, and in my heart knew who I was. I'm going to be like Rory, and I'm Buddhist now. Like, that's, I'm just going to be Buddhist now because that's what he is. Started doing yoga, and, that's not me. That's not me at all. So, freshly sober and in love, and I just thought I was going to live in California forever, and that was going to be it. But God kept pulling me. So we decided, him and I decided we couldn't afford California anymore. So we were gonna move, but I didn't want to come back to Cincinnati. We couldn't afford to stay in California. And we were like, let's move to Asheville, North Carolina. Like, that's a good idea. I had never been here before. The night before the flight took off, he broke up with me. And he was just like, I'm not leaving California. Like, I can't go. If you still want to go, cool, but like, I'm not leaving. It's like, all right, like, I'm gonna go. So I came. I ended up, and at that point I was sober. I was on MAT, I was on Suboxone. but I wasn't actively getting high at that point. I came down here and I stayed sober for a few months. I was here total about 8 months. Moved down here in August of 2017, and I got a job downtown at a little restaurant, and I was doing good. Super involved. I made friends that were good and healthy for me down here. I stayed sober for a few months. I was at work one day at the restaurant downtown here, and one of the other servers came up and had a handful of Klonopins, which are like Xanax. She was like, hey, I got this prescription today. Do you want some? And I just couldn't fight it. I think I was just lonely, and I was still running, trying to find myself. And I was like, yeah, sure. Within a week, I was doing heroin again. I ended up selling every piece of furniture in my apartment within 30 days of relapsing down here. And not only did I pick up back doing heroin and, fentanyl, I started smoking crack too. So those two became my main drugs of choice. Towards the end, it was honestly crack more than opiates. I just couldn't stop chasing that high. I had my first overdose in Asheville. Thank God somebody was in the apartment with me to call 911. You would have thought that would have shook me enough to get sober. It did not. And I met Steve in a parking lot that night. And I had been feeling this pull to surrender, to finally surrender. And I ran into Steve. And I went up to him and I was just like, hey, I said my drug addict spiel that I had. And he was so kind to me. When you are that low in your life that you are walking up to strangers, I probably weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, probably hadn't showered in 4 days. You know what I mean? That's what drugs do to us. People are mean to you. Like, they look at you, they judge you, they know what you're going to use the money for, and you feel worthless. And Steve didn't make me feel that way that night. He prayed with me. He gave me a card. He did give me a little bit of money. He was like, please don't get high. And I was like, oh, I'm probably going to. I'm sorry. But, that's the mindset that I was in at that time in my life. But he was kind to me. And what he said stuck with me that night. That was February of 2018. 2 days later, I called my dad at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, you got to come get me. I surrender. I heard God speak through Steve that night. It is time to set it down. And that's what I did. Temporarily. The story goes on. So within, 2 days, my dad was down and I had robbed a drug dealer and I got out of town quick. There were people after me down here. I was scared. I was ready to go home. So they came and got me. And when I got home, I didn't stay sober. I didn't stay sober right away. I ended up running for a few more months. Got in a lot of legal trouble in Cincinnati. I had resorted to doing things that I swore I would never do. I have been abused in every way possible. I've had guns held to my head. I have, been in the car with strangers who could have killed me. I've slept in abandoned buildings by choice. Could have always went home. And my parent, come home. I don't want to. It's easier to get high. I can't get high at your house. I'd rather walk the streets and ask people for money than to come home and get sober right now. So I stayed out for a few more months. I had a felony warrant in Cincinnati at the time for theft, because that's what I had resorted to in my drug addict thinking at the time. And I came home sick one day, middle of 2018. Don't cry. And I was begging, please, just $20, I'll do anything. And my mom, she played it cool, and she was like, okay, just sit still, I gotta go get the money. And before I knew it, the police were banging at the door. And she had called the cops and told them, hey, my daughter has a felony warrant. I'd rather her be in jail than dead. Come get her. And I was so mad. I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to forget. I fought the police trying to get out the door. I was kicking over picture frames. And that ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me. I went to treatment. I went to jail, not treatment at that time. I went to jail for a week or two, and I got out on house arrest. And I stayed sober. I stayed sober for almost a year. Things were going really well, but I wasn't going to church. I wasn't doing anything for myself. I was simply just not doing drugs. And I ended up relapsing. I stayed out for another 6 months, again, heroin, fentanyl, crack, and went on the run for the felony warrant. I didn't show up to probation. I lost everything all over again, and every time you relapse, it gets worse and worse and worse, and that time took me pretty low. So I ended up fully surrendering. September 22nd, 2019, I went to a state-funded Medicaid facility in Cincinnati, and I cold turkey detoxed on a concrete floor. I went into precipitated withdrawal. It took everything in me to stay grounded in that treatment facility and finish it. But I was surrounded by a lot of other girls in recovery that were in treatment, but it was a really good group. We all knew God, and we made our treatment focused on God. And it was the first time, I think, in my life where even though I was in treatment, I knew exactly who I was. I felt like I had fully surrendered. I remember sitting on a picnic table. They took us to some event at that treatment center. And I was sitting on a picnic table, and I just started crying. And I was like, this is it, God. Like, you have me. I see you. I hear you. And I don't ever want to go back to that lifestyle again. I'd never want to feel desperate again. And I didn't. I've been sober since September 22nd, 2019. After I got clean, I got my license to be a substance use disorder counselor. So I've been working in the mental health and addiction field for almost 6 years now, because I pretty much started immediately. I got a front desk job after I got off of probation, because that's another piece. After I got sober, I still had a felony warrant, so I had to go turn myself back into jail like 2 months sober after treatment. And that was scary, but it was like cleaning up our wreckage. We have to face really scary stuff sometimes sober. But I did it, and I made it through jail, and I made it off probation. And once I did, I got my license to be a counselor, and I've been working in the field ever since. You know, my favorite verse is Jeremiah 29:11, and it is, for I know the plans that I have for you, right? Plans to prosper you and give you a future. And looking back, I always felt that pull, and no wonder it's my favorite verse. Like, I always knew that God had me. In the midst of trap houses, in the midst of being in a city where I knew absolutely nobody, getting in strangers' cars, God had me that entire time. I had a bigger purpose. It took me a little bit longer to see that, but when I did, it was like a light went off, and I've just been on fire ever since. So this September, I'll have 6 years sober. The decision to stop running and accept Jesus has set me free, broken the chains of addiction, and given me a life that at one time I could only imagine. It's not, for the longest time, I thought it wasn't cool to be a Christian. I was running. It was cooler to be a drug addict. No, it's not. It's the craziest thing. Like, that's so crazy. So I have a life that I could just only imagine, and my main purpose in this life is to be a good mom to Jane, and also to share my story to help other people. So, guys, I am proof that God is able.
So just to kind of piggyback just for a brief moment on what Katie said, she's our only. She's the love of our life. We are the Three Musketeers. And when she was born, took one look at her and knew that, God had a great purpose for her life. Like she said, during high school, she got in with some very bad people. We tried to fight it, but, by the grace of God, she came out of that by her senior year. She got involved in college, just like she said. Early on, I knew I would wake up. God would reveal it in dreams even. I would wake up out of a dead sleep and tell Kevin, something's wrong. I got to go get her. I got to go get her right now. And that's what I did. I fought like a man for my baby. I would show up in places literally ready to fight grown men to get her out. Kevin did the same thing. And over time, we realized this ain't changing the situation at all. Yeah, I was praying, but I was still fighting to get her in my way. When she was here in Asheville, started off really well. We were being supported. We were glad she was out of Cincinnati, away from this man. That was awful. And then a couple months in, started seeing some changes that resembled past patterns. And again, waking up, something's wrong. I became the bad guy. Why are you doing this, Mom? I'm fine. So I had to be the bad guy. But what I learned was pay attention to those feelings, Mom. There was a morning I woke up, it was in January of that year, 2018, and I woke up and I just knew something's wrong. And I called Kevin at work, and it was snowing in Cincinnati, and I said, I'm leaving, I'm going to Asheville. Don't go, snowstorms. I said, no, I'm going to Asheville. I showed up at Katie's apartment, she wasn't there. I think I had a key, I went in, I was waiting for her. Again, I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine. Well, on the way to Asheville, God revealed to me, you go, you tell her to come home. If she doesn't, you go home without her. Hardest thing I ever did. I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine. She wasn't fine, and I knew it, but I had to leave anyway and come home. So in February, Kevin made a trip down. The first time, same thing. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. We knew we couldn't fight it. So one night I was on my knees in the dark in my bedroom, and basically told God, if you will just bring her home, if you will just straighten her life out for you, God, and use her for your glory, take me. I meant it with everything in my heart, just take me. But don't take her. And in that moment, my phone dinged, and it was laying upon the bed, and I was on the floor on my knees, and I picked the phone up, and one of my kids, because we teach, we taught the teens and the young adults at our church at that time. And you talk about a hard one. We're going to church on Wednesday nights, teaching other people's kids about God, knowing my baby was not good right now, and I couldn't do anything but pray. And so I picked my phone up, and one of the young girls had sent a clip to a song, and it was Reckless Love of God. And I'd never heard it at that point. And I clicked on play, and those words, there's no mountain I won't climb up. There's no shadow I won't light up coming after you. And in that moment I said, God, you've got her. My hands are off of this. I'm not fighting it no more. I'm not chasing her no more. I'm not begging her no more. She is yours, because there's no mountain in Asheville he ain't going to climb up for my baby. There ain't no darkness at night that he's not going to light up to find her. And he had her. And it wasn't long after that she ran into Steve. And she called. And she told me about running into Steve before she called her dad a couple days later. And she said, I met a man, and he asked me, did I know God? And I told him that, well, my mom and dad go to church, and they teach church kids. And he said, no, I'm not talking about your mom and dad, I'm talking about you. And she said, I got to thinking about that heart, Mom, so I just, yay, But 2 days later, a day or two later, you called your dad and said, I want to come home. And she came home. She still had some up and downs, and she's right. There was the time when she had done something with the wrong crowd and got herself a little case and had a warrant. And that was the hardest decision I ever had to make. But I knew, because again, God told me, if she walks out that door, she ain't coming back this time. So I had to do the hard thing. And I said, yeah, come on, I'll get you some money. And I called the police on my holy baby. And she looked at me as she was being put into the police car, and she mouthed, I hate you. And I mouthed, I love you. That night she had one call, and she called, and she said, I'm really mad at you, Mom, but I don't hate you. I love you. And I said, I love you too. We'll get through this. And the rest is in God's hands. She surrendered, and she gave her life to God, and God has blessed her with this beautiful baby girl that is just as much ours if she would have had her biologically. She's our whole world. Gave her a great career where she can use her testimony and her story and her pain to help other people struggling and in recovery. I know when it was me going through breast cancer treatment, I couldn't hardly relate to anybody saying, it'll be okay. But if a woman who had come through it or was going through it said, I understand, it mattered. So Katie's able to tell people that she works with every day, I get it, I understand, and that matters. Our relationship now, when Katie was a little girl, she would always say, Mom, it's going to be me and you driving in a convertible Jeep with Dad in the back seat tagging along, and we'll just laugh. And, there was a few years there when she became an adult that we didn't get that opportunity. But we have that now by the grace of God. So the grace and mercy, that is the words that just keep bubbling up in me as we were preparing to come down. Just grace and mercy of God and His ability. But she shared with you her favorite verse, but mine throughout her journey was Jeremiah 1:5. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. And that helped me greatly to know that He knew her, He loved her better than I ever could, better than her dad could, and that He had her. And one night at a revival, a 90-year-old woman, mother, looked me in my eyes and she said, don't worry, your child will never, ever outrun the prayers of a mother. And so I remembered that and got to the place of surrender. So that's our story. And that's the glory of God, only by His grace. And I thank Him every day for saving my daughter and restoring our family and transforming us into the image that His plans had always had planned for us. So I thank God. God is so good.
You heard the stories, right? That's brutal for a man, for a father, for a husband. Come on, what would everybody do with that? Dealing with all the emotions, somehow I've had the ability to just I block it out, right? I don't want to hear what she just shared with everybody. I've blocked it out. The stuff that we've gone through, the trials, the tribulations, the troubles we've got ourselves in. Jeannie shared, we would show up at places with ball bats, right? And I act like I was righteous in that, the things that I did while I'm fighting for my family, or Jeannie's fighting for her family. But no, that's not how God says to handle things. God says get on your knees and you pray to Him and He fights our battles for us, right? But as a man, as a father, as a husband, that ain't what my flesh is telling me to do. My flesh is telling me to go get a bat and go find them. Had a shotgun in my lap and I rode around the neighborhood for days. If I'd have found the man, I'd have blew his head off and I wouldn't be standing here today, right? But that's not what God calls us to do. So I called my nephew and I said, hey, you got to take the shotgun back. I didn't have a gun. So he comes up, he's like, here you go, Kev, I got you a double barrel. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to go find them. But that stuff, man, that's hard for a man to deal with. But throughout all of our trials, God remained faithful. Regardless of my faults and my failures and my mistakes, the things that I did to try to protect her, God was faithful regardless of Kevin's failures. The most important thing that I've learned is prayer. We fight our hardest, strongest battles when we're on our knees and we're allowing the Almighty Creator. Do you realize this is all because of Him? He's created every single thing. And it's all His. It's all His glory. So why would I go after and fight something that God can just take care of, just like that? Jeannie and I would fight for her over and over and over again, but nothing really changed until we changed our battle plan. Once we decided that this is too big for us, we can't handle it, this is yours, God. And then, Brother Mike, where's he at? The peace fell over us, and we knew it was going to be okay. Our prayer was, Lord God, whatever it takes, but please, Father, be merciful. Please have mercy on our baby. But do whatever you got to do to get her straight and to get her right and to get her back in a relationship with you. Whatever you got to do. And a peace fell upon us, and we were like, even knowing everything that was going on, a peace fell upon us that we were okay, that God had it, He was going to take care of it, and we didn't have to fight no more for it. It was covered. I'm here to give glory to God, and I praise Him and I thank Him for all that He has done for me and for my daughter and for my wife, my girls. And what He's done for me, He's not partial. He'll do it for every single person who will cry out and ask Him to help, right? I'm just a, poor boy from Cincinnati, grew up in rough neighborhoods, fighting and scruffing, and God here's a guy like me, right? So I praise His holy name tonight. I thank Him for all He has done for us, and to God be the glory.
I would tell somebody struggling with addiction to surrender, to go home. Go home. Your parents love you. Your kids love you. Your family loves you. Get counseling. Figure out what the root of your trauma is, why you continue to use, and what you're running from. There are a ton of community resources. If you have insurance, you can look on the back of your insurance card and call that number. It will tell you exactly who your insurance will cover for mental health counseling, for substance use counseling. If you don't have insurance, you can get a hold of your local county's Medicaid program. Most of the time when we are using drugs, we qualify for Medicaid. That is free insurance. Get the help wherever you can. God broke the chains of my addiction, and I have just been on fire ever since. Since I got sober, I've gotten a life that I could have only dreamed of. I have a daughter, I have a house, I have a relationship back with my family. I've been able to work through shame and guilt that I never thought that I could. I have forgiven myself. I have a relationship with God. I have a job that provides all of the things that I thought I was too far gone to ever have. Through the grace of God, I have restored.